Hello, everyone. Welcome in to another episode of the PHNX Rising Podcast. Appreciate you guys joining us here on it's a Thursday. We're remote. We're in the dwellings. I'm back in the cave. Owen is back in his place.
At least you have lighting, Max.
You do have lighting. That's at least for another hour or so until the sun goes down. Yes, absolutely. But we don't need to worry about the weather or lighting or anything like that. Open cup decides our fate. That's what happens when we sleep, when we wake up, and everything like that. As Owen's eyes are bulging out of his head. But without further ado, make sure everyone to hit that like button. Of course, leave 5 stars, leave a review, all of that great stuff. I am, of course, Max Simpson, and as mentioned, I am joined by Mr. Owen Evans. How we doing, buddy?
It's a Thursday. There's been a lot happening, hasn't there? There has been a lot happening. So I guess we better get talking about it.
Yeah, well, a lot happening within the soccer realm, a lot happening within the PHNX realm. Listen, I'll start with this before we get into the content. Just know, there's always a lot of people who watch all the other sports and shows here going on within the Valley, the other PHNX programming. Just know that we always love you guys here with open arms. And, especially if you guys are, Yotes fans, we definitely have a soft spot in our hearts for you guys. And if you ever need anything, please always hit us up. We always love to support the crew over there and just everything like that. It's trying times for sure. So I'll leave it at that. Let's get into some of soccer, as I say. Let's do
Max,
that.
do you really have to start on the most you've set a tone here, mate? Now,
yeah. Hey, man, I'm just being real. I am just being real. Listen, man, we're gonna keep it positive, but damn it. I wonder who that
in the background.
Yeah, you're not on the pod. Go away. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks to Sam. The vibes are definitely back and off the rails per usual. No, it's always just nice to leave it.
What a rebound! What a rebound!
Oh gosh, what a rebound! No, rebound with us. No, it's got some soccer to talk about, right? We will get into the Open Cup stuff later, but listen, we can't get away from it. We got a match on Saturday, right? We've been saying for last couple weeks, and goodness gracious, this seems so eerily familiar to around. Maybe a similar time, a little bit earlier than last season when, Rising is playing this stretch of matches, right? We were saying from a couple easy or dare I say beatable opponents, three matches, 9 points. We got the one away at Orange County. There was one at home. I'm blanking on the middle one, but then that third one was against Vegas. Rising crapped the bed. Long story short, we are now back to we're going to take it easy. We're having 6 points from 2 matches. They already got the job done last week. Rising plays Pittsburgh, a team that's not doing the hottest after coming off a pretty impressive season last year. Owen, we're going to break down Pittsburgh. What strikes you most about this Riverhounds team?
Well, the big thing is, of course, you compare them to last year and Albert Deke was gone. Huge, right? That guy is a goal-scoring machine, or he was last season, definitely. And without him, they've struggled. They've struggled to find the back of the net. I mean, it's worth noting that how many goals have they scored, Max, so far this season?
One
goal. Yeah. That's what happens when you lose a notable striker. But again, you know what? Goals do change games.
And they win games too. Yeah.
Well, you know what? What's a good tone setter here, though? Of course, we know how good that Pittsburgh team was in the regular season last year. Yeah. But let's have a listen now to Rising head coach Danny Stone and what he had to say about the Pittsburgh Riverhounds and how they've changed from last year to this.
Honestly, I see a lot of similarities in that we know that they defend very resiliently. They, with a back five that they've typically played with again this season that we've seen them use a lot through the last couple of years. We know that they defend their box with a lot of pride. We know that they have that sort of very hard to beat mentality about them. And then going forwards, they have some athleticism and some ability to run into spaces from the front line and through midfield. We see, I think it's very easy to perhaps wrongly classify Pittsburgh as a team who you might describe as a fairly vertical team. which at times I think is fair, but I also think they maybe don't get enough credit for some of the passages of play that they do produce in the attacking half. Especially they have good players, good quality players through midfield, and they have, in the attacking side of the game, they have wing backs with a lot of energy who will look to join and get into those wide areas and threaten the box with crosses from those areas. And I think a lot of these themes are fairly consistent and fairly similar to what we've seen over the last few seasons, but for good reason. They do it very well, and they are well versed in how they work and how they train as a team and a club, and are coached very well in that regard from an experienced coach in this league. And so I think we see a lot of similarities, and for understandable reason, what they do very well, and it's been very successful for them. And credit to them on the club that they have been and the team that they've been over the last few seasons. And this is exactly why I say, regardless of what you might read in terms of results, we don't expect that plays much of a part in this game at all. We expect to see the same tough team that we've faced over the last, we've seen over the last few seasons in this league, and I don't expect anything different again this week.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's understandably, Danny Stone is going to give it a credit to the opponent, as he should, right? Again, we saw how this team, yes, there's different pieces there, but saw this was a dangerous team in the regular season last year. And again, as we've been saying, you can't take any match for granted within this league. Is there reason to fear Pittsburgh Riverhounds in any way? And if so, what is that facet?
I think the real reason, the only reason to say that, is that you never quite know what Bob Lilly has up his sleeve. Sure. You've got a coach there who is one of the most experienced at this level, if not probably the most experienced coach at this level. And he's had a lot of success over the years.
Yeah.
That hasn't translated to playoff success, particularly with Pittsburgh, but he's had some real success in the regular season there about building up a team from not looking great necessarily in terms of the individual pieces that he puts together, but he always finds ways to grind results out with them. And I think the biggest worry should come from the fact that if Bob Lilly comes in and decides to set his team up in perhaps a more negative fashion, if Rising still aren't quite getting over the line in terms of working out how they're going to score multiple goals in games, or even in some of these games, finding how to score a goal full stop, you end up in that point where just there's a risk that you drop points. And long run, you can't be affording really to drop points in a game like this, knowing that the next month is going to be pretty crazy.
100%. And I think that's very much kind of the stretch. I know it's the clip we posted on Twitter yesterday from last pod of you need to take your chances and your opportunities when they're there, with playing these matches at home against these clubs who, right, they're not world beaters, especially from a record standpoint. Again, you have to contrast that with there are no easy victories, but on paper, if this is one you should win and you're at home, especially with the stretch ahead, you need to be able to take care of business. We do have to, of course, recognize everyone in the chat. Appreciate you guys being awesome. Fat Kid with the first like, Cy Lee with the second like, and then some Aston Villa nonsense we're definitely not going to get into. Albert, evening, everyone.
Who are Aston Villa?
They're not going to make top four. That's all I care about. Mikey, that's going to set her off. Mikey in the chat, talking about Eric Dick, Rick Dick. Apparently he's says that you can just kind of throw the ball in the net.
All right. Let's talk about Eric Dick. Let's have a look at his stats so far this season. We do have a graphic here.
Yeah.
We do have a graphic here. Let's have a look. So he's played 5 games for him, 70% save percentage. That XG prevented, that's a negative number. So actually the expected goals against is smaller than the number of goals that he's conceded. He did, of course, feature on loan for Phoenix Rising in 2020. Max, do you remember that? It was a different age, wasn't it? Rumor has it Reno weren't dead yet. He conceded 4 goals in 2 league matches
there it is.
with the team while he was here. And I think fans don't necessarily recall, the most positive experience of Eric Dick here. Not necessarily someone who they look at and think, oh, what a great player he was when he was here. Obviously, he was a backup goalkeeper, but I just, I don't want to kind of dig into him too much here, because The guy was, I think, a bit happy-go-lucky and not a bad necessarily locker room kind of guy. I don't know. People thought he was a little bit weird, but hey, he was young when he came here. He's still playing in this league.
He was his last
I mean, I see the chat is having great fun. They're comparing Eric Dick with Hunter Salty at the moment, and they don't have favorable opinions of either of these goalkeepers. I think the thing about it, though, we've got to remember this, is that Phoenix Rising's had such a high level of goalkeeper over the years. When you look at guys like Karl Wazinski, you look at Zach Lubin, you look at some of the others that have come since. I mean, obviously at the moment with Rocco Rios Novo, but you know, there's so many people you could name off. Ben Lunt, Andre Rolls. There's just so many, and there are even more. There are more that I'm not mentioning right now. I mean, you're not bringing up Lalo Michael. He's not in that conversation with those guys. He did love to hike, Brett. Yeah, he did love going on a hike, and they still play off that joke a little bit now that Eric Dick loves to hike. But it's I don't know. I don't view him as being of the caliber of the goalkeeper that they lost. I'll put it that way. So you've got two big losses there, right? And it's in the attack, and it's also in the goalkeeper, which is a downgrade. And what it means is that now that they're not conceding necessarily a whole lot. Their last two games have been 0-0 draws.
Yeah.
And I do fear a 0-0 draw could be coming. But they're not creating enough either at the other end. I mean, they can't seem to. It's just not working out in terms of the attack and getting that final ball or getting someone in the right position or having someone who can tuck it away. I mean, tucking away is a big part of it actually as well, because again, one goal, their XG is 4.51. So there's your context to that one, right? That's low. That is low. It's the third worst, joint third worst in the league, according to a good friend, Stat Lucky Reese. But it's still better than what their actual output is. Their actual output is dire.
Not good.
Look, is it going to come together later on? Maybe. I mean, that first game in Pittsburgh were torn apart by New Mexico in the midfield. It was New Mexico have actually proven to be not too bad. Not great, but not too bad. But Pittsburgh, I don't know. It's just been such a rough start to the season for them. That do I think Bob Lilly turns this around a little bit and they end up making it into, playoff position? Yeah, because so much of the league makes the playoffs. But
that's what Albert says. He can pull the result out of his arse when needed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's the risk, right? And that's Bob Lilly's a good coach.
Lily ball. Yeah. It's right. Eric Dick's definitely a big part of the story. Kind of looking at some of the other advanced stats. Again, shout out to Stat Lackey Reese. Right. It's kind of that conversation, as you mentioned, of, we thought Rising has not been converting goals at a high clip, and haven't been, but kind of pales in comparison when you compare them or try to compare them to Pittsburgh Riverhounds. Again, kind of going over those stats at a high level. 1 goal, least in the league. Expected goals, 4.51, tied for third least in the league. So you're telling me that not only are they not even getting in those great positions and great opportunities, but they're also not converting at a high clip. Their expected goals, they're kind of off of that. And yet you also have your expected goals on target, 2.88, second least in the league. 35 chances created, and shots on target, only 17 through their matches. Again, it is the defending. They did have in recent draws 2 0-0 draws, which, yes, you've already alluded to. That is a possibility for this match. And it's really kind of just looking at, they're not dominating matches, but they're not also getting, shall we say, passed off the pitch. 49% possession averaging for the season, and actually leading in the field tilt category with 52%, right? We're kind of looking at some of the stats as well from their previous matchups, even against Tampa Bay. They won possession. They won field tilt. They had more chances created. They had more shots. They had more shots on target, and they had more XG. Again, it's one of those things where this team, they have chances here and there. It's not always clear cut. They have been missing theirs. I'm going to give you a spin zone from the other side that this team has been so dire. And even though they haven't been creating a lot of chances, they have missed their fair share. Some might say, as we were talking about Ronaldo Damas with Colorado Springs, Pittsburgh might be due. Just gonna throw that out there as a devil's advocate. What do we think about that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't necessarily believe in that kind of
Okay.
stuff. I think it's the same kind of logic that brings people around to like you go up to the roulette table and start going, well, what have the last so many been? Well, it makes no real difference.
Put on black. Put on black. Don't worry, I got you.
Okay. I
win money.
I just don't look at Pittsburgh and think that they're that great. I think they're still working things out right now, particularly in that attack that's just proven to be just not there. I don't know. I mean, again, right? Do I expect them to come in and put in an organized, workmanlike kind of performance? Yes. Do I expect them to have a whole lot of success up at the top necessarily? No. I know that Bob Lilly is capable of pulling off these kind of feats, but and I don't want to discredit him and discredit some of the players that they do have there, but I just don't see this being. Look, I've had conversations with people about what my expectations for this game are, namely people who were considering do they want to go out to this game or not. And I've made the comments about how, I don't know, this could be a kind of a boring game.
Yeah,
not to be too negative here,
no,
but
I mean,
I see it be a pretty.
I think it's a perfect combination. Kind of Albert sums it up well, right? Like we just saw on screen. Pittsburgh dragging matches down into the mud. Don't expect many quality chances from either side on side. I think that's exactly it. Is you have a Pittsburgh team, right? Where again, you can play the devil's advocate or not. They have not been converting chances, the very few that they've had, right? So there's that side. Phoenix Rising, not by any means world beaters, but what we have seen from this Rising team when they have been threatening this season is they score their goals when they're in transition or when the game is a bit more open. When you try to isolate, except for the John Stenberg kind of pseudo corner goal from last week, they really haven't had that kind of sustained series of we're going to be able to break you down when you're in that final third, when it's not in a possession or when you're not on the counter or anything like that. When a team just sits in that low block, when that team just sits even in that mid block, Rising has a difficult opportunity. Now, this is something we've seen last season. This is something that has permeated over. This is not anything new. Again, it's going to be interesting in kind of the lineup Rising goes with. We'll get into that a little bit later, right? Remy Cabral could be a good factor, but I do agree with what you're saying, and we'll get into predictions as well later. This could be one of those matches where it might take a moment of brilliance to break through. Otherwise, you might be looking at a miserable game. Now, watch as we say that it's going to be a 3-0 barn burner, like Tulsa was.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But I wouldn't bet any money on that whatsoever. I'm not expecting positive things necessarily in terms
that
of
is
thrilling end to end. I won't get into my score prediction yet until we get to after the Phoenix Rising discussion on this one, but not expected.
That's understandable. You said you're not going to bet. You said you're not going to bet money. I totally get that. If you do want to win money, man, I recommend our friends at Arizona Lottery. Arizona Lottery, right? Good way to win money. Play their AZ Adventure program. 3 ways to play and win. First off, get their AZ Adventure Lottery tickets. 3 iconic landscapes: Picacho Peak, Monument Valley, and Camelback Mountain. These have tickets, prizes up to $50,000. Of course, you can also check in at geolocated adventures at 10 destinations across the state, from Flagstaff to Yuma. Visit azadventure.com for details and directions. And of course, ticket proceeds, right? They support environmental conservation. You like the planet, you like the earth, you like hiking, all that stuff. Great opportunities to support Arizona Lottery and our beautiful state that is Arizona. We're Phoenix Rising. It's a beautiful time. We're in Arizona. That's what this supports. Boom. Visit azadventure.com for more information on how you can take an adventure for a chance to win $1 million. That's 7 digits, $1 million in cash. And Arizona travel prizes. Of course, you can get those Arizona travel prizes at Circle K. Circle K, they got their Inner Circle program. You want to slurp on a big old Polar Pop, guzzle it down on a hot summer's day, which is definitely coming around here.
Right around the corner.
It's getting there, man. It's already kind of sweating a bit. It's kind of one of those things where like you park your car and you're going into somewhere, even if it's Circle K, and you're like, I'm already kind of sweating. And it's been like a 2-second walk, and you're there. It's about to get there. It's only going to get worse, right? It's like 91, I think, was the high today. add another 30 degrees on there. We're going to be there before we know it. As Albert's saying, every day is Earth Day, Max. You're darn tuned. It is actually almost Earth Day. Celebrate Earth Day with some Circle K. That relates somehow, but right, they got the Polar Pops. They have, the discounted gas when you are an Inner Circle member, right? 25 cents off per gallon. That's what you can save. You can then save up 3 cents per gallon, even 5 cents per gallon when you hit the max level. The max level will get you 5 cents per gallon savings on every gallon. Again, you get 6 coffee free, pizza free.
What level was that, Max?
Oh, the max level.
The max level.
You know it. Copyright, Max Simpson, trademarked. Anyway, join our Circle free by downloading the Circle K app today. All you need is a phone number. Terms and conditions do apply. At participating locations, visit circlek.com for details. All right. We talked about.
We're looking at Phoenix Rising now.
Yeah, we did. We talked about Pittsburgh Riverhounds, right? Some of their players, kind of their season. It's been kind of gross from the Pittsburgh end. And Phoenix Rising has been marginally better, I guess, comparatively, right? This team, they're kind of getting into it still. There are some encouraging pieces. But again, we've kind of said at the start of the show and throughout the last segment that there is a way for Pittsburgh not to get too much out of this game, which is totally fair. The same thing can be said for Phoenix Rising. And while we're not maybe necessarily worried about Pittsburgh scoring, we should be worried about Rising scoring because, again, we're not looking for 1 point out of this match. We're looking for all 3. Owen, how do they get that?
All right. Well, I tell you what, there's a few different strands that we can go down here. I'm going to talk a little bit. I think we should talk a little bit about tactics and the tactical approach that Rising took in the last game. I know we did it on Tuesday as well, but we did hear more from Danny Stone today. So I asked him a little bit about that tactical approach and how the change there kind of makes some differences in terms of the attack and what it brings and why they went with it. And here's what he had to say today.
I think it just gave us a few different options in terms of how to play in the attacking side of the game. It gave us a little bit more probably higher, wider threat from wingers, and then obviously with fullbacks playing the ability to perhaps have more numbers in those wider areas to create some situations there. But more than anything, like I said after the game, I felt it was an appropriate game last week to pick that formation. Certainly not something that is a given moving forwards that we'll continue to utilize, but for selection purposes last week, I felt it put a couple of players who we wanted to get on the field into positions that were perhaps their most natural roles and potentially then their most effective roles. But it just gave us a different way of attacking a little bit more fluidity, I think, in the attacking side of the game from, without having 2 10s in those pocket spaces. The ability for other players perhaps to move into those areas a little bit more and just create a little bit more movement, a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more fluidity in terms of where players had a bit more freedom to exploit those spaces. So, again, I think it was something that we looked at for the last game and felt it was an appropriate time, an appropriate way to approach that game. And we'll, as I said, after the Colorado game, we keep it as an option and we consider it. And I was pleased with how the players adapted to it. And generally how they performed in that system in the game, but it's by no means something that we use as a given here. Now it's an option for us, and that'd be a little bit more dependent on the game perhaps, and where we feel players' strengths are, and analysing the opponent. All those aspects always come into play, but I was pleased with how the players utilised it against Colorado for sure.
All right, Max, I'm going to toss this one at you now. I know I'm taking control. I'm seizing control of this. So Max, here we go.
Yeah.
Danny mentioned about how, it's not a given they're going to come out in this. It's not like they've adopted this new formation. They're going to do this every single game.
Yeah.
Do you stick with this going into the game against Pittsburgh as a formation? We can talk about the individual players later again. Are you sticking with it for this specific game?
Oh, man. I don't know, man. It's I think it did have its advantages, but I think against this Colorado Springs, I get a lot of it playing 4 at the back because maybe, again, not by much. And this is like, I'm maybe pulling at hairs a bit here. I'm grasping at straws, but you can maybe make the argument there's a bit more of an attacking thread. Colorado Springs, they can play on the counter. They've traditionally been able to do so. Gives you a bit more balance. All else being equal, I actually would not mind the switch back into a back three for this match, being able to get guys up a little bit further and get more on the front foot. Now, that being said, I don't see that happening, especially wanting to, right? It's maybe a bit rushed, do that from match to match. Let's get another game with this back four in mind. Let's see how it plays out. Yeah, there we go.
See, here's the thing, right? And this is how I'll compare it.
Okay.
To me, Pittsburgh are a really competent team defensively. And I think that just the way that it opens up some numbers in certain areas of the pitch, to me, I think you stick with the think you stick with the change for this weekend.
Okay.
They play that 3-5-2 in Pittsburgh. It's to me, I think you've got a better chance of getting a goal if you stick with it. Now, if you want to say you get a goal and then you start to retreat, that's a very different question.
It is.
And I don't necessarily disagree with that as the idea, but I think you do not. But here's the question. It's the question that the chat is loving. And thankfully, I did actually ask this. So I don't have the video ready for you here, but I can talk you through a little bit of what Danny had to say. And it was the decision-making of a Panos or Fede Varela. And the way that he put that is that when you look at this team, there are two parts to this, really. Number one is that Panos has played in every game.
Yep.
So, and he'd started all of those games, even if he was coming off early. So you felt like there was a little bit of a need, maybe let someone else have a pop at it as well, and rotation over the course of a season. And the other way he tried to put it, and of course, look, I will caveat this by saying, of course, we know it is to an extent coach speak, but the idea here being that, of course, there are spaces for people to contribute in roles that aren't necessarily starting every game as well. That he doesn't look at it as though he's necessarily removing them from the lineup so much as finding them a different role in any given game, and that there's an expectation that there will be impact off of the bench. And those people coming off of the bench are going to have an impact and should have an impact. Now, I see people are arguing around a little bit in the chat here, and Reese, Brett, Michael, okay, everyone's going at it. And of course, other people earlier on as well were also getting in on this one. Yeah. I'll broadly agree with Michael. I think Fede was all right on Saturday.
It was one of his better matches. It's one of his better matches.
All right.
Sure. Yeah.
But he was all right.
Well,
I feel as though Panos sometimes adds a little bit more. I understand. I feel like the fan sentiment in general is quite pro Panos.
I think we're all
and you're going to struggle to get past that one at any point. Which is also why I don't feel like I really want to go too much into depth on this one, because we'll just get into this again, which we kind of did on Tuesday as well.
It's a never-ending loop. No, I mean, I think listen, what Danny's saying, I don't disagree with him. I think they're like, whether it's even a bit of a, like, not specifically for the situation, but in general, whether it's a bit of a rest, whether it's being able to say, hey, giving a different role to a player, being able to utilize them. Listen, I do think there is a place for that in certain situations. I think, again, we've talked multiple times at Flux about these outside back situations, these wing backs of, again, do you start a Powerito, Juan Carlos Azacar? Do you go with a Gabby Torres?
I'll toss an extra one in. This is a serious selection question.
Oh, I think I know.
What are you going to do about Emmy coming back from suspension?
Yeah, no, that's a
how, and I don't mean starting. I mean, look at that bench. Who are you dropping? Who are you dropping from that bench? Genuinely.
100%. Give me one.
Are you playing?
Yeah, I'll get to. Let me sidebar that. Give me 1 second. We'll go back to that. It's the wingback situation. I do think there is something where you can make the case Gabby can be a starter, Azacar can be a starter. I do agree that there are guys where you can say, hey, maybe we're saving this guy who, if they're going to put in a shift, they're going to be running all over the place, give him half an hour or so. Even if you value Panos doing that job, I don't think we haven't seen a ton of opportunities of him coming off the bench in general. But when we haven't really seen him being electric, because his best roles have been where he's able to influence the game and dictate from the start. So I get the logic where Danny's coming from. I just don't know if that applies to a player like Panos in this position. And then on the other side of things, we've seen Fede, whether he's starting or whether he's coming off the bench, I haven't seen a noticeable difference positively or negatively either way. using those two pieces of logic, I get what Danny's saying. I just don't think it applies to this situation. I get it. We'll kind of put a pin because we can keep on going back to the Panos situation. We'll see what they rolled on Saturday. Going back to your question of, right, Emi Cuejo, that is going to be a fascinating one in a number of levels of, right? We've seen him play that position flexibility. We've seen him out wide. We've seen him through the middle. Who do you go for? And yes, I agree. I don't think that he's necessarily. I don't think he's necessarily starting, but it's going to be fascinating on where you even fit him in.
All right, so you got your lineup, your 11. I'm just talking numbers right now.
Of course,
your lineup is the 11. Presumably, nobody from that 11 is going to be dropped entirely out of the squad.
Sure, I would agree with that.
You have a bench of Erickson Gallardo, Jose Hernandez, Panos Amanakis, Ale Fuenmayor, Edgardo Rito, Patrick Rakowski, and Juan Carlos Azacar, plus the 2 kids. Who do you drop?
Patrick Rakowski, risky for the biscuit, no offense.
See, no, here's the thing, though. It's not. And this is actually, that leads on to a really interesting point we can make here. No, Max, seriously. And this is the thing now, is that with the new substitution rule from USL, Scarlett Odell's being named to this bench when you're playing at home.
Sure.
If you trust in this kid, in the event that something happened to Rocco Rios, he could not entirely embarrass himself.
You're not wrong.
Are you in a position whereby you say the risk versus reward, you start to move towards, do you drop Patrick Rakowski? And that's a really interesting kind of just, how do you game plan that? Do you, and obviously it comes down to how much do you trust this kid?
Yeah.
Okay? We haven't seen Scarlett play. I can't tell you. If he's any good or not. I really can't. That's down to Corey Robertson, who's worked with this kid for years, to give you an indication on that. And it's down to Danny Stone to work that out. And maybe that's not fair on Patrick Rakowski, but it is also the situation that you're dealing with a finite number of substitution places. And one of those positions that, really, 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 do you actually bring a goalkeeper on as a sub?
Yeah.
Do you use one of the kids' spots on a goalkeeper?
Yeah.
That would, you're unlikely to use it. But you do have a goalkeeper in the worst case. It depends how good they are, but I don't know. It's an intriguing one. That opens up a whole different possibility on that one.
I get it. I mean, people think, carrying in this case, a extra goalkeeper is kind of dead. Wait, no, easy solution. We'll just have Rakowski, learn midfield, play in there, easy, done and dusted. But no, I mean, I think that, right, it's a very intriguing scenario. I think it's one of those things that, right, you're only going to have 5 subs. You're only able to make those shifts. It kind of then becomes, you want to take what the game is giving you and make the subs accordingly, rather than, there might be cases, whether it's injury, whether it's fitness, of saying, hey, maybe we give such and such player 60 minutes, 70 minutes, and then look to bring him off. I think that's a case-by-case basis. What you really want to do, I feel like, is kind of going on how the game is flowing. Who are those people you can bring in to make the most kind of bang for your buck, that most impact? I don't know if, saying freeing up that spot, you have Rakowski off, you trust the young buck, and you're saying, hey, that gives you another option off the bench. If you insert, let's say, Emi Cuejo for that, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I guess it's also, at some point, you kind of have to be realistic of, like, you have a lot of depth. It's a luxury that you have. We haven't found ourselves in this situation a ton last year. You might just have to go with, okay, maybe it's a game-by-game basis of the guys who are being able to rotate in and go from there. I also think the key question, though, becomes, where do you value Emi Cuejo best on the pitch? That, to me, is really where
it depends on the formation. That's the point. He's either going to play.
That's the other part. Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, the problem you have is that, again, I don't see necessarily who's droppable. I think Gallardo off the bench is something that can really contribute. And we saw him actually wasn't that bad off the bench, to be fair, last game.
Yeah.
But again, you have that pace and you have that at your disposal off the bench. That's always a concern. Jose Hernandez, if you drop him from there, who's the real, like, holding midfielder per se there at that point? Fuenmayor, you don't have a centre back if you take him off the bench. You don't really have a defensive player if you take him off the bench.
These are good problems to have.
I guess you got Azacar. It's probably somewhere along the lines of Gallardo, Rito, Azacar. You probably have to drop one of them if you imagine you stick with everything. Just because you'd say you're a little bit overloaded maybe at those positions.
I tend to agree.
But I don't know which one you choose to drop.
I don't like that. But it is a luxury. It is a bit of a luxury.
I don't know which one you choose to drop. Yeah. All right. Do you want my score prediction? Are we at that point yet?
I think we're at that point. Hit it.
0-0.
Okay, you did go 0-0.
You knew it was coming, Max. You knew it was. This is going to be a dull game. It's going to be 0-0. It's going to be just a miserable match. And you know what? Phoenix Rising needs 3 points in this game, but I don't know if they'll get it.
No, Phoenix Rising scores a goal. But it's 1-1. And it is a dull 1-1. Yeah.
It's a dull 1-all.
It's gonna go 1-all. There's gonna be a goal early, maybe a goal around halftime, one of the halves, either one. It's even with the goal in there is gonna be dull. I got 1-all draw. Rising misses out on 3 points.
Draw.
They get 8 point, but man, they really could use all 3. I don't think they get it. Let's see. We got a couple people in the chat. Let's see. We got Bandito's Bluebird 1-1 agreeing with me. Smart man. Siley 2-1 Phoenix Rising. Damon is just booing you. Andrew Dang 2-1 for Rising. Think we'll bounce back. I like that. Brett George in the chat 1-0. I'm assuming Phoenix Rising. Albert in the chat 1-0 Rising. Reese going the same prediction as Colorado Springs 0-0. One of the teams score in the last 15. Okay, got it. It then turns
It'll be 1-0, but it's going to be
to 1-0. That's poor formatting, Lackey. Siley with her 2-1 prediction saying Panos scores both. Andrew with his score prediction 2-1 saying Remy Cabral and Gabby Torres. I like that. Kevin, wow, you guys are really on it with these predictions. Kevin in the chat 1-0. And DeGoli says you're killing him. Yeah, a lot of Owain slander right now. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's gonna be interesting how this.
Also, producer Kyle did throw in as well that he agrees it's going to be 1-all.
Kyle, who is helping out? Yes, of course. 1-all. All righty. Well, it's gonna be interesting, right? We'll see. That's why you have to play the match, see how it plays out. If you're getting stressed beforehand, might I recommend some OGs to help take the edge off. OGs brands, right? I don't know if you know this, Owen. Do you know what date Saturday is?
What date Saturday is?
Yeah, what date is Saturday?
Is it the date that you get that 1,000 milligram OGs and decide to? Max is getting the 1,000 milligram one.
No, we can't even start that because I think that's when Max doesn't hop on the pod for a week because he's asleep for a week. That's just me personally. If that is your fancy, check out OGs. They have, of course, the new 1,000 milligram gummy. If that is what you're interested for, they got that. They got the 100 milligram gummy perforated, right? Boom. All that stuff. It is fantastic. I should clarify the 1,000 milligram gummy, right? It's in the bag. It's got them separated out, but it adds up to 1,000 if you would like to do so.
Max, as a serious question now, you can bring some OGs to the tailgate for the people.
Hit me up on the side. I cannot confirm or deny, but
confirm or deny.
For those who are watching on YouTube, you know what I mean? Hey. Yeah, exactly. But boom, OG's brands, it's fantastic. He helps you out. Maybe some of you in the chat are on OGs, right? Devinol, maybe you can't use it because you're not over 21. He's just a kid, not over 21. But right, Kevin probably in the chat, right? He's coping because Liverpool lost. They're out. Siley, maybe she's working the OGs, thinking that Villa are going to win it all in Europa and all that stuff and finish top 4. That's not going to happen. Mikey in the chat, maybe he's coping. Man, they're irrelevant. Me, Spurs, I'm chilling with OGs on their microdose edition because, right, top 4.
We're not going to win anything. We're
not losing a single European competition this season. It's fantastic. That just means we are confirmed the best in the Premier League because we're finishing top 4. We're not going to lose a single European competition. It's absolutely fantastic. Boom, roasting all the chat. If you want to cope, check out some OGs brands at ogsbrands.com or on social at ogsbrands. Of course, you must be 21 years or older to enjoy responsibly. Check them out. And of course, they'll be at Budsapalooza tomorrow. These guys won't be at Budsapalooza because, Budsapalooza is, for the people who partake, if you know what I mean. But if you don't want to if you're not wanting to partake on, tomorrow, or, you're more of a liquid partaker, might I recommend our friends at Valley Taproom. Valley Taproom, right? They got the multiple locations, right? They got the Gilbert location, the Queen Creek location. Get some delicious Four Peaks beverages over there, right? They got the live karaoke. They got the trivia. They got all these different things, to have some fun, grab some beers, support a local tap room, right? Again, I've already said the Four Peaks beers. They got the wine slushies. Great times there. Yeah, check them out again at Valley Taproom, online at valleytaproom.com, and of course on social at Valley Taproom. Yeah, is that a big sigh?
Yeah, now you've got me wanting a beer.
I know. That's what I
might
do.
need to deal with the next month or so.
Ad man for a reason, baby.
Chaotic one. It's going to be a chaotic one, isn't it, Max? And it's only the chaos is being added to because what happened today, Max?
Oh boy, the Open Cup. It
The
consumes
Open Cup draw. The Open Cup,
Consumes us
because
all.
again, why make things make sense? You know what? I'll take this though. Did I or did I not tell you that Rising was going to be paired up with Seattle in a group?
I don't know if you did. Did you?
I did. I've been saying
Okay,
that for
that's
a few
fair.
weeks now.
Oh,
I
well,
also
well
said
done.
that the rest of it was going to be an complete and utter mess.
I
It was.
do specifically remember hearing you saying in no uncertain words, if I go back to that hellhole in New Mexico, I will quit.
Yes.
We're safe.
Thank you, envelopes, man. We didn't
Envelopes,
have to go
man.
there again.
Envelopes, man.
Watch Rising get to the quarterfinals and get knocked out now by New Mexico United.
Oh
in the away
boy.
game in Albuquerque. Watch it happen. Watch it happen.
Oh,
We
boy.
can't
Well,
avoid them.
you can't avoid them. Envelopes, man, may have saved you from New Mexico in this upcoming round. But you know what? Rising still
That
has to
isn't the
play
only group
someone.
pairing I got right, Reese. I got
true.
all of them except if you swapped Houston and Dallas around, I got them all right.
That's true.
All the
Well,
MLS and USL teams, I matched them up correct.
Well, Rising still has to be able to play one team in their next Open Cup match. And who's that team going to be, Mr. Owen Evans?
It's gonna be away in North Carolina, in Cary,
yeah.
North Carolina, which actually, I mentioned this one to you, Max, that I am now, because of that draw, now at the end of May, I will have gone away to all of the active USL Championship teams.
That's actually really cool. Wow.
Genuinely, like that was the only one because Rhode Island's coming up in obviously next week.
Yeah.
Detroit and Indy are both in May, and now North Carolina was the only other one that I had left to do. So May 25th against Indy, I'll have done all USL Championship teams.
I think you're one of a handful of people that can probably make that claim, buddy.
There's really not many people who can
That's
say
cool. That's pretty
who
cool.
aren't like players or
That's
stuff.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's pretty good. Well done. Give Owen some kudos. I'll give him that. That's awesome. Well, okay. So
but it also means that in a stretch of, and this is going back to our comment on the urgency. Actually, sorry for Rising and getting points in. If you take my flights between next Thursday, so I'm leaving in the night, and like the 26th of May, so literally like a month and 2 days.
Yes.
I'm flying the equivalent of like going from here to Adelaide and back. It's a lot. It's a lot coming up this next month, and adding that East Coast trip to Cary is not helpful. I
mean, if we're
they do at least, and we don't know the full details. And I didn't ask this at the time because obviously we didn't know if it was going to be on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, and the team didn't know at the point in the press conference. But if it's on, because the game's on the Wednesday, maybe they stay east, maybe they stay an extra day in Carolina, or they head up to Detroit early. Is it really worth coming back here? Probably not. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. So it's North Carolina in the first round away.
It is.
And then the round of 16, if they make it there, will be Seattle or Louisville also away.
Rack up those miles. Oh, pack your bags. This is just a quick aside, just to kind of color how, to your point, how important this Saturday's match is, and kind of setting the scene for this Open Cup. The Open Cup against North Carolina in North Carolina will be the second of 4 road games that Rising will play from the end of April to the end of May. Not consecutive, but Phoenix Rising will go in order their next 4 away games: Rhode Island, North Carolina, Detroit, and Indy. Those are
worth
trips.
Noting that if Rising beat North Carolina in the midweek before the Indy game, they will also be away from home. Because that next round of the Open Cup, then, so that'll be either Seattle or Louisville. If it's Louisville, you have to imagine they stay there, because there is no point in they're right next to each other. There is no point in coming back, especially if the game's on the Wednesday. There is no point. It's like a couple of hour drive. It's 2 hours up the road. There's no point flying all the way back to Phoenix and then fly all the way back over there.
Oh boy. Owen, Reese is saying you look like a broken man talking about all this travel. How are you coping? Screenshot that all.
Speaking of which, should we get Danny Stone's reaction to the draw, the Open Cup draw from today?
Yeah,
Have a listen.
let's do it.
It's a draw that will, I think, be an exciting matchup for us. I think it's obviously a team that we will face later in the season anyway. But it's a very different draw, I would say, at this stage for us in the Open Cup versus potentially the more regionalised draws that we've had earlier in the competition in the past few years. So I think it's one that we're looking forwards to. I think from seeing Carolina play this year, it's been it's been a good team to watch this year, and it looks like a place to go and play that like I say, will both test us and will be an exciting challenge for us. So it's maybe something that wasn't perhaps so expected, but I think it adds maybe a little bit more enjoyment to that competition from seeing some different teams earlier on in the season. It will add obviously another long East Coast travel trip for us, so that presents something that we have to make sure we manage and deal with. But as far as the game goes, we're looking forward to it and ready for that competition to start. So I think overall we're happy to see the draw and know where we're heading, and we start to get our heads around that when the time comes in a few games from now.
Just a reminder as well, this is the third time that Rising has been at this point in the tournament. Obviously, they've had to win to get here in the past. The change in format really kind of messed with that a little bit this time. But this is the third time. The previous two times was in 2022 against Sacramento Republic. Rising went up there. Greg Hurst missed a penalty in that game. And yeah, ultimately couldn't make it on through. The other time was, if you go back, way back 10 years ago, 2014, Arizona United.
Oh yeah.
Which is of course a direct predecessor of this team. It's the same team. They just changed the name in the middle. They played LA Galaxy and lost 2-1 up in Peoria despite taking a lead.
Yeah.
So if they win in Cary, this is history. This is history for Phoenix Rising. This is be the furthest that they've made in the tournament. But Reese, was that the Sacramento match where the kits looked the same on the broadcast? Yes, it was. They didn't look the same in real life, to be fair.
Yeah.
But on the broadcast, yeah, they looked the same. But in real life, you could tell the difference.
Okay. Well, yeah.
I'm told that Sacramento refused to change their kits, which Rising only having a red and a black kit available to them kind of make things a bit awkward.
Classic. Well, let's take a little look, right? I know it's a couple weeks away, and we'll definitely kind of go about this bit more in depth ahead of this match. Let's take a brief look at North Carolina, right? Seeing what they're going to have to offer ahead in a couple weeks' time. In the recent Open Cup match, beating up only a 1-0 scoreline, but they were beating up on the Carolina core, 2.18 XG to 0.25 comparatively.
They should. They're a Division 3 side. Let's be real. Let's be real about this.
That's what I'm saying. Again, they beat them up, but of course they should have. Yes. Shots on target, 8 for North Carolina, 0 for Carolina core, 15 total shots for North Carolina. Chances created, 13. Won the possession. Won the field tilt. There we go. A little bit of history on North Carolina. Their farthest run, this is all courtesy of Stat Like Reese, of course. 2007, reached the semis, upset the Chicago Fire.
Carolina Railhawks.
That's a name.
The Carolina Railhawks, as they were known then, who played at the time in the USL First Division. Doesn't that make you feel like how many iterations of USL have, well, technically it's one real iteration we've been since then, but
yeah,
God, they've played in USL First Division and became, obviously they went off to NASL, didn't they? And they came back into the USL fold, and
there you go.
Wow, they're a team that have been around for a bit, to be fair, by American standards.
Yes. They upset the Chicago Fire in the third round that year, then lost to New England 2-1 the following round.
After extra time.
They have had a couple runs in recent years. 2018 made it to the round of 32. Same thing the year following. And then the past 2 years, 2022 and 2023, made it to the second round. 2022 lost opening match 2-1 to RGV at home. And then last year, after extra time, lost 2-1 to Loudoun on the road, right? It's gonna be interesting. I think the fact that this team, right, is not playing New Mexico, it's a bit of a more unfamiliar opponent. I don't know. I can understand dreading, maybe not dreading, the cross-country flight, maybe not being ideal from the, let's call it, recovery and maintenance perspective and just the hassles of what it is of traveling as a player and coaching staff cross country. But from a game standpoint, it's at least interesting. It's a little bit something different. And game on.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang. Well, man, a little Open Cup.
You know what? Should we talk? Let's quickly just run through all the fixtures that were drawn from
You
this.
do have
one.
the graphics.
Pick out the ones. We do have it, so let's have a quick look. The first slate of games here: Charleston Battery and South Georgia Tormenta, Atlanta United playing Charlotte Independent, Tampa Bay Rowdies, Birmingham Legion, and all USL Championship affair. FC Dallas hosting Memphis 901. Now, here's one that's interesting. Union Omaha and Sporting Kansas City. These sides met in the past, but it was in the other location there. Can Union Omaha at home pull off the upset? And if they do, they will host the winner of Pittsburgh Riverhounds against FC Tulsa. Of course, you look at Rising's little group there. You've got Seattle Sounders playing Lose City. The winner of that game will host North Carolina against Phoenix Rising. We move on to the second lot of games that we have in here. Sacramento Republic playing Monterey Bay. And of course, this one, the spicy one, San Jose Earthquakes.
That's nice.
Owned by a certain Mr. Fisher against Oakland Roots. Wow, that one could be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That one could be interesting. And speaking of which, we move on to another interesting game. Las Vegas Lights.
Conflict of interest.
Reserve team
Conflict of interest.
Will be hosting
Disqualify.
LAFC.
Oh, yeah.
We've got the Coast to Coast Classic here, Orange County against Loudoun United, that local fixture. Indy 11 playing San Antonio on a big one there. Houston Dynamo, the defending Cup champions, will be playing Detroit City. New York City FC 2, the only remaining MLS Next Pro side in the competition, do have hosting rights through the round of 16 if they can make it. They'll be hosting Colorado Springs Switchbacks and New Mexico United hosting MLS opposition in Real Salt Lake. So, Max, any of these really, really caught your eye there?
Honestly, it's kind of the two that you mentioned. It's the Cross Bay rivalry, Quakes, Roots, and then
I think that one could be quite.
Oh yeah, little bam.
Yep. Oh yeah. Fans getting in. The Oakland fans more than the San Jose fans. To be fair,
it is. That's what we call that one could get set off, as they say. And then yes, also just an interesting one of kind of approach of LAFC versus Lights. That's kind of intriguing.
Yeah.
Well, and then I would say even not the matchup necessarily, but just right Dynamo. Let's see how they try to defend the cup. But man, we went
there, of course, as well.
Of course. We went through Open Cup. Went through this Saturday, buddy. Is there anything else we're missing?
I don't know. Is there anything else we're missing, mate?
No, I think we're pretty good.
We've kind of
I think we covered more than enough. Well, we appreciate everyone joining us here on another episode of the PHNX Rising podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at PHNX__Rising because double the underscore.
Double the Max is buying OGs.
I don't. Oh, I mean, I can maybe provide, but must be 20 years older. But in the meantime, yeah, of course, we'll be back Saturday for a little matchy against Pittsburgh Riverhounds. In the meantime, you already know where you can follow us on Twitter. We just said that. You can follow me on Twitter at Max David Simpson. You can follow Owen on Twitter at OJ Evans 18. You can follow Stat Like Reese at Reese 11_. You can follow Kyle, always helping out, at K Coops Sports. And you can follow.
Oh, he's gonna do the Jacob thing again.
You can follow. I think Jacob has his own personal YouTube account. You can follow him at Jacob Franklin, and hopefully that types it in, and you don't get some random guy. But we'll find out. But hey, until then, it's a beautiful game, but it's way more beautiful when we have Open Cup in our lives. Something to look forward to, and we look forward to seeing you guys in person on Saturday. Blaze it later.
We all silly like the mayor.
Well,